What does it truly mean to age with wisdom? Why do some men grow older but never grow wiser? And could the ancient teachings of Stoicism still hold the key to a fulfilled, fearless life, even today? Welcome to Deep Thought Realm, a place where ideas are not just explored but experienced. If you've ever wondered what it means to live with purpose, resilience, and calm in the face of chaos, then you're exactly where you need to be. Today's episode isn't just for old men. It's for anyone who hopes to grow old with strength, not just years. Let's dive deep. There was a time when old age was a badge of honor, not a burden. In tribal societies, the elder wasn't pushed aside. He sat at the center. His voice held the weight of decades, his stories carried the tribe's history, and his judgment shaped the decisions of warriors and chiefs alike. He was not just an old man, he was the living archive of the community's soul. But in our modern world, the role of the elder has been diminished, often replaced by data, algorithms, and influencers half his age. Today's society idolizes speed, innovation, and novelty, traits usually associated with youth. As a result, older men find themselves sidelined, their experience overlooked in favor of trendier, younger voices. What's lost in this shift is not just tradition, but wisdom. Hard-earned, scarred, and weathered wisdom. Stoic philosophy, however, never discarded the value of age. To the Stoics, the elder wasn't irrelevant. He was the embodiment of reasoned experience, the one who had seen the cycles of joy, loss, fear, and resilience play out repeatedly. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers, wrote about the importance of learning from those who came before him. Praising their patience, restraint, and sense of justice, he understood that wisdom doesn't come from ambition but from reflection. And reflection requires time, a luxury only age can offer. In this sense, an old man is not just a former version of his younger self, he is a deeper, more distilled being. Each year has carved meaning into his thoughts, and every scar is a footnote to a hard-learned lesson. Yet modernity tells a different tale. Retirement often feels like a forced exile. Media paints older men as slow, stubborn, or irrelevant. But what if the Stoic model has it right? What if the last chapters of life are the most powerful, not because of physical strength, but because of moral clarity? In Stoicism, aging is not a retreat, it's an ascent toward inner mastery. The older man has a choice: fade into quiet frustration or rise as a beacon of reason in a chaotic world. It's time to rewrite the narrative. Old age should not be seen as an expiration date, but as a graduation into mentorship, legacy, and deeper understanding. The Stoic elder is not clinging to the past, he is guiding the future. And perhaps the most revolutionary thing an older man can do in today's world is not to become young again, but to become more fully himself, unapologetically and consciously. He is not forgotten, he is essential. A man's life is not determined by what happens to him, but by the lens through which he views those events. This is not a cliché, it's a Stoic law. Epictetus, born into slavery, understood suffering intimately. And yet, he taught that even a slave could be freer than an emperor if he mastered his perspective. In other words, pain is real, but suffering is optional. The Stoics believed that your mind, and only your mind, has the power to define your experience. As men grow older, the temptation to view the past with regret and the future with dread becomes stronger. Time feels like a shrinking resource. Losses of people, status, strength accumulate. But Stoicism doesn't ask you to deny these realities, it invites you to transform them. An event is not inherently good or bad, it's neutral. It's your interpretation that gives it meaning. The same rain that ruins one man's plans waters another man's crops. Perspective is not delusion, it's power, discipline, and control. Modern psychology now confirms what the Stoics intuited centuries ago. Reframing our thoughts can reshape our emotional world. Cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective psychological tools today, is built directly on Stoic principles. What Epictetus taught in the Roman Empire is now used in therapy rooms around the world. Change the thought, and you change the feeling. For an older man, this is more than a tactic. It's a form of psychological freedom. You are not at the mercy of life. You are the interpreter of it. Consider this. Growing old is often seen as a loss of potential. But what if that's the wrong lens? What if it's a gain in perspective? The young man chases outcomes. The older man recognizes patterns. The young man reacts. The older man responds with intention. Wisdom is not just knowing more. It's needing less explanation to see more clearly. Perspective becomes the quiet superpower of age. So when hardship comes, and it will, the Stoic doesn't collapse into despair. He asks, "What can this teach me?" He turns setbacks into blueprints for growth. And that shift in viewpoint can mean the difference between a bitter old age and a peaceful one. Life, as the Stoics remind us, isn't what happens to you. It's how you see it, and that is something no one, not even time, can take away. One of the hardest lessons a man can learn, especially as he grows older, is this. Most of life is not in your control. The Stoics didn't whisper this truth, they declared it. Epictetus taught that the only true freedom lies in understanding what belongs to you and what doesn't. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices, those are yours. Everything else, weather, aging, others' opinions, even the outcomes of your own efforts, those are not. And the more you try to control the uncontrollable, the more you suffer. Many men, especially in their later years, grapple with the quiet panic of lost control. Bodies slow down, influence fades, the world changes faster than they can adapt. But here's the paradox. The tighter you grip what is slipping away, the more you weaken your inner peace. The Stoic path isn't about resignation. It's about discernment. It's about knowing where to place your energy. Why waste your strength wrestling the tide when you could be mastering your sail? Control in the Stoic mind is not about dominance. It's about direction. You cannot force life to obey your will, but you can align your will with life by training your reactions, taming your expectations, and sharpening your focus. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, betrayal, and plague during his reign as Roman emperor. But in his meditations, he never once wrote about controlling others. He only wrote about controlling himself. That's not weakness, that's ultimate power. Letting go of control doesn't mean giving up. It means letting go of illusions. It means trading anxiety for attention, ego for understanding. When you stop clinging to what you can't command, you free up space to strengthen what you can, your character, your presence, your inner world. And in a chaotic, unpredictable world, those become your compass. So for the aging man, Stoicism offers an unexpected liberation. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to win every battle. You just have to govern yourself with clarity. In doing so, you reclaim your dignity, not from the world outside, but from the realm within. And that is a kind of control no one can take from you. In an age obsessed with opinions, noise, and instant reaction, silence is seen as absence. But to the Stoic mind, silence is not emptiness, it is presence distilled. It is the space where clarity grows and ego dissolves. The modern world rewards those who speak first, shout loudest, and never stop. But the wise man knows, it's not the loudest voice that leads, it's the quietest one that listens. Silence isn't passive, it's strategic. It allows thought to mature before it becomes speech. The Stoics valued speech as a tool, not a reflex. Words were meant to build understanding, not perform identity. Seneca warned of idle chatter and superficial conversation, not because he was antisocial, but because he understood how easily words could scatter the mind. In silence, we learn to hear the world and ourselves more clearly. For older men, silence becomes even more powerful. In youth, speech often compensates for insecurity. With age, the need to prove fades, and in its place, a deeper awareness grows. The Stoic elder doesn't interrupt. He observes. He doesn't rush to fill silence. He holds it. And in doing so, he earns the attention that others demand. His words carry more weight not because he says more, but because he says less, with precision. Think of nature. The strongest trees don't rustle in the breeze. The deepest rivers don't splash. Their power lies in their stillness. The Stoic man, too, becomes a force by standing quietly in a world addicted to motion. He is not absent from the noise. He is above it. His silence is not retreat. It is resistance to chaos. And in that silence, he becomes a mirror for others to confront their own noise. So when life grows loud, when anger, fear, or confusion press in, the Stoic's first move is not to speak, but to be still. He creates a space between stimulus and response, and in that space, he finds his strength. In silence, he becomes the master of his reactions, the steward of his soul. In a world that equates noise with relevance, silence becomes an act of quiet rebellion and of deep, enduring wisdom. The stories we tell about aging are not facts. They are scripts. And for far too long, the dominant script has painted growing old as a slow fade into irrelevance. Wrinkles become metaphors for decay, not for depth. But what if that story is wrong? What if old age isn't the final act of decline, but the third act of transformation? The Stoics invite us not just to live differently, but to think differently about time, value, and our place in the story. Culture teaches us to associate youth with beauty, energy, and potential. But those qualities fade. What endures, what deepens is character. And character is forged in time, not in haste. The older man has walked through fire, heartbreak, failure, uncertainty, loss, and yet he still stands. That resilience is not weakness hidden in age. It's strength earned by it. To dismiss that is to miss the core of human development. The Stoic narrative doesn't glorify the past or mourn the present. It teaches us to own our story, not just the highlights, but the failures, the regrets, the things left unsaid. Seneca wrote, "Begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life." For the older man, this means it's never too late to reshape the arc. Redemption isn't reserved for the young. In fact, the most meaningful transformations often happen late in the game, when there's no longer time to impress, only time to be real. To rewrite the narrative of aging is to flip the script. It's to see wisdom, not decline, presence, not passivity, influence, not invisibility. In many ways, older men are society's best-kept secret, underestimated by a world that doesn't know how to measure quiet authority. The Stoic doesn't need to shout to be heard. His life, composed, intentional, grounded, becomes the message. So if the world insists on defining you by age, Stoicism gives you a counteroffer. Define yourself by truth, by inner freedom, by who you've become when no one's watching. And in doing so, you don't just rewrite your own story, you give others permission to question theirs. That's not aging, that's evolution. Discipline is often misunderstood. To the young, it feels like restriction. To the ambitious, it feels like a tool for achievement. But to the Stoic elder, discipline is something more sacred. It is dignity made visible. It is the structure that holds a man together when everything else around him starts to change or collapse. As strength fades and roles shift, discipline becomes the unshakable foundation of self-respect. Seneca believed that without discipline, freedom is just chaos in disguise. True freedom isn't doing what you feel like. It's having the strength to choose what is right over what is easy. In old age, the body may slow, but the will can sharpen. And in that sharpening lies nobility. The older man who rises early, who maintains order in his space, who eats and speaks with intention. He is not clinging to habit, he is honoring his values. Discipline is also resistance. It is the refusal to drift into bitterness, laziness, or helplessness. Many men, when they retire, feel a void, a lack of structure. But the Stoic sees this as an opportunity, not to wither, but to reforge himself. No longer beholden to a career or an image, he can now become a craftsman of his day, a steward of his mind. He doesn't need applause. He needs alignment between what he believes and how he lives. And perhaps most powerfully, discipline becomes a message to others. Younger men see it and feel something ancient and rare: respect. Not because the older man demands it, but because he embodies it. His posture, his speech, his presence, they all communicate that he hasn't given up on himself, even if the world seems to have. In that, he becomes a quiet leader, a living example of self-mastery. So when the world tells older men to slow down, to fade into convenience, Stoicism offers a challenge. Don't surrender to time. Partner with it. Use your habits not to fill the day, but to shape it. Live deliberately, walk purposefully, speak sparingly. Choose clarity over comfort. In this, discipline becomes more than a practice. It becomes a form of personal sovereignty. As men grow older, many find themselves clinging to a role they once held: the leader, the provider, the one in control. But times change, technologies evolve, new generations rise with new ideas and unfamiliar energy. In this shift, many older men feel replaced, overlooked, even irrelevant. Yet this discomfort reveals a powerful Stoic truth. Your value was never in your control, it was in your wisdom. And wisdom does not fade, it simply needs a new direction. The Stoic path reframes aging not as losing power, but as transforming it. Instead of managing people or systems, the elder steps into something more lasting: mentorship. Where management demands authority, mentorship offers presence. A mentor doesn't dictate, he guides. He doesn't compete, he cultivates. And in a chaotic world searching for quick answers, the patient insight of an elder becomes more valuable than ever. Marcus Aurelius credited much of his moral strength to the men who raised and advised him. Not kings or warriors, but quiet thinkers who taught him justice, calm, and endurance. The Stoics understood that true mentorship isn't loud. It doesn't seek credit. It shapes character from the inside out. For older men today, this is a hidden gift. They can stop fighting to stay on top and instead focus on lifting others from within. Mentorship also heals the mentor. In teaching, he is reminded of what he's learned. In listening, he is reaffirmed in who he has become. His past mistakes become roadmaps for another's future. His emotional scars become symbols of survival. This role doesn't require titles, platforms, or perfect health. It requires only authenticity and a willingness to show up with honesty and humility. So for the Stoic elder, life is not about being in charge. It's about being of use. He no longer seeks validation. He offers orientation. He leads not with orders, but with example. And in doing so, he finds that his greatest influence does not come from controlling the world, but from shaping the soul of another. That is not retirement, that is a legacy in motion. To the modern mind, death is something to be avoided, ignored, or delayed. We hide it behind hospital curtains, euphemisms, and anti-aging industries. But the Stoics took the opposite path. They turned and looked directly at death, not with fear, but with clarity. Memento mori, remember that you will die, was not a morbid slogan. It was a daily meditation, not to sink into despair, but to rise into awareness. Aging is life's most honest reminder that time is finite. Wrinkles aren't just signs of decay. They are records of time lived. And yet, for many men, this realization breeds anxiety. They feel they are running out of time to become who they imagined they would be. But the Stoic mind sees mortality not as a deadline, but as a compass. It clarifies what matters. It silences the trivial. It awakens presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is not about fear. It's about urgency, but the right kind. The kind that strips away ego, resentment, and illusion. For the older man, embracing mortality becomes a kind of spiritual discipline. It means living as though each conversation could be your last, not out of dread, but out of deep respect for the moment. And here lies a paradox. The man who accepts death is often the one who lives most fully. Why? Because he is no longer imprisoned by denial. He no longer postpones the important things. He speaks more truth. He loves more intentionally. He lets go of the grudges that used to rot his spirit. Mortality, for the Stoic, is not an enemy to conquer. It is a teacher to embrace, and its greatest lesson is this: your time is not infinite, but it is enough if you use it well. So when death finally arrives, as it will for all of us, the Stoic elder doesn't flinch. He has rehearsed this goodbye. He has made peace with the unknown, not by knowing it, but by living wisely before it. His legacy is not in what he leaves behind, but in how deeply he showed up while he was here. And that, perhaps, is the most fearless act of all. In a world that equates happiness with accumulation, more success, more possessions, more noise, the Stoic finds joy in the opposite direction. In simplicity. The older man especially has a rare vantage point. He's chased the promises of the world. He's seen that luxury doesn't guarantee peace, that status doesn't ensure fulfillment. And in that awakening, simplicity becomes not a lack, but a liberation. Seneca, one of Stoicism's great voices, warned that wealth often enslaves rather than frees. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor. This idea takes on new depth as we age. The older man no longer needs to impress anyone. He is no longer building an identity. He is living it. And so he begins to crave less noise, fewer distractions, and more truthful presence. Simplicity is not a minimalist aesthetic. It is an ethical choice, a return to what matters. A warm drink in the morning sun, a walk without headphones, a conversation without performance. These are not trivial moments. They are sacred routines. In these quiet rituals, the older Stoic finds a deeper kind of joy, not the thrill of the new, but the richness of the now. The pursuit of simplicity is also an act of resistance. In a culture that tells us we are what we own, the Stoic elder says, "I am what I understand." He values depth over decoration, intention over stimulation. His life may appear modest to the outside eye, but internally it is vast, anchored in gratitude, clarity, and peace. That kind of richness cannot be bought. It must be earned through reflection and restraint. So while the world rushes by, the Stoic walks slowly. While others chase more, he guards less. While many chase a curated image, he embraces his raw and honest self. In simplicity, he is not withdrawing from life. He is stepping closer to its essence. And the joy he finds there is not fleeting. It is quietly eternal. In a world that never stops moving, the man who stands still becomes noticeable, not because of his volume, but because of his gravity. Stillness is not idleness, it is power under control. The Stoics saw it not as a lack of action, but as the height of mastery. And for the aging man, stillness is not just natural, it is noble. It is a signal that the chase is over and presence has begun. In youth, men are driven by urgency. More to prove, more to do, more to conquer. But as time unfolds, the Stoic learns that not everything deserves a reaction. Not every fire needs to be fought. Stillness allows room for discernment. It's the quiet between decisions where real clarity lives. Marcus Aurelius often wrote in the early morning hours before the empire woke, because he knew that silence sharpens judgment. Stillness also creates space for others. The Stoic elder in his calm invites others to slow down. Not through instruction, but through example. He listens more than he speaks, observes more than he commands. And in doing so, he becomes the anchor in conversations, the pause in chaos, the mirror in a world that's forgotten how to reflect. What legacy does this stillness leave? One of steadiness in a storm-tossed age, of being remembered not for grand gestures but for the calm presence that softened others' noise. The older Stoic doesn't chase legacy through monuments or recognition. He builds it through being a refuge. A man who shows up fully without needing attention leaves behind a deeper imprint than one who shouted every step of the way. So the next time the world demands that you rush, prove, or react, remember this: the quiet man, rooted and still, is not out of touch. He is in tune with himself, with nature, with truth. And that stillness, intentional, grounded, unwavering, is not the end of the journey. It is its highest form. Aging isn't the end, it's the evolution. The Stoics taught us that growing older isn't about fading away, but about stepping into deeper wisdom, sharper clarity, and quiet strength. Here at Deep Thought Realm, we explore the kind of ideas that stay with you long after the video ends. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect and then share your thoughts in the comments. What lesson hit you the hardest? And if you've watched this far, type Deep Thought Realm in the comments. Let's see who's really walking this path with us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This is just the beginning. Until next time, stay present, stay grounded, and stay deep.